and boom goes the dynamite.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome into another edition of Daily Dive. I'm your host, Renee Washington, for our Thursday episode. I cannot believe it is already Thursday because that means we are one day closer to the excitement of this weekend's games across the NLL. So as always, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Make sure that you're keeping up to date with all things Daily Dive as we're bringing you new and exciting episodes each and every day, Monday through Friday, with all the latest news, including trades. So that being said, I welcome in producer Mike to get into our big story of the day, one of our big stories of the day, I should say. And our top story is presented by the Daily Dive store. Be sure to check that out in the link in our social media bios, as we have merch there that you can buy and support the show and also promote all things across. So with our top story, we've got to share another trade. Last week was full of trades. This week's been a little slow in that sense, which is wild to think about since it hasn't been slow at all. So the Philadelphia Wings have traded a 6th-round pick in the 2025 NLL draft to the Buffalo Bandits for a 2025 6th-round draft pick, and which is a weird thing actually, and defenseman Marcus Minichiello. So they trade draft picks. Actually, I may have that wrong with the years, but they trade draft picks. And they also send a defenseman in Marcus Minichiello to the Wings, which is wild because at 25 years old, he's 6'2", solid player. What are your thoughts on this trade? We're trading some draft picks, so just moving up a spot in the 2025 draft and then also getting a chance to trade a defenseman.
That's what it seems like. 165 pounds for a 6'2" guy is like, God, I'm jealous of that. But I'm gonna be honest with you. I was talking with somebody who likes lacrosse and knows lacrosse better than I do. They were basically saying that did the Wings do this to like add some young voice to a locker room with Joe Resitaritz, Ben McIntosh, Trevor Baptiste. I mean, those guys, they have a really decent roster and they're not winning games. So good thing to think about here. As far as the draft picks, the fact that it was both 2025 6th-rounders is really, really weird. So I wonder if they think the Wings are just going to be really bad. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes you see trades to move up in rounds, not like within the same round, especially the 6th round. Like if you're trading, maybe I can understand in the 1st round you're trading to move up to an earlier spot because you want to get, a top pick or something. But like you have to do a double take when you read that because it's the 6th round in the 2025 draft. And it's like, what real difference does that make? Like this trade is an odd one. But we did see the Bandits had announced back in 2021, July of 2021, they had signed Marcus to a 2-year contract at the time. He is a player that, made his debut in the NLL with the Bandits in that 2019 season. In that rookie season, recovered 12 loose balls in 5 regular season games. He also had a chance to play with the Paris River Wolves in the Reno Lacrosse League. He's young, but he doesn't have a lot of professional games under his belt. And so you wonder what this trade is, maybe a move to open up space or a trade for something else, because sometimes it's like a multi-step part, and this is maybe just step one. The Bandits have been involved in other trades as well, as we looked at Adam Bomberry, the trade for Adam Bomberry. So, it just things that make you go, We'll see.
That's
how
a
this
good point about Buffalo, because maybe they aren't satisfied. And maybe I like the step one part of that because maybe they do have something else planned. Maybe they're freeing up a little bit of cap space or something to land a bigger fish. And if they don't, maybe it's something that's going to happen in the near future. I like that. It's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, it's just about a week or so. Oh, it's actually like a week to the day since their trade with the Firewolves for Adam Bomberry. And so we're seeing them make some moves. And I just imagine that this trade, especially when you're moving 6th-round picks and moving a player who doesn't have a lot of NLL minutes under his belt, that this is a small step towards a bigger move. So I am excited to see what the Bandits do next. And I love the fact that today on Daily Dive, our special guest that is joining us is Buffalo Bandits analyst Steve Bermel, who will be on the show shortly. So he might know a little bit more about what's going on up in Buffalo. But let's shift over to Vancouver really quickly before we welcome in our special guest, because the Warriors have announced that they have an alternate jersey that they just dropped. It's beautiful. It's honoring, as you see there on your screen, it's a First Nations jersey. And so they reworked the logo. They have an artist, Casey Hall, who designed this. And during Saturday's First Nation celebration, they will be rocking this alternate jersey. So nicely done by Casey Hall to put this together. I love the colors. I love, most importantly, what it stands for, though, Mike.
Especially during the Every Child Matters thing going on right now. But this is,
Yes.
I'm a sucker for jerseys that rock. Like, my favorite sports teams usually are because I love their jerseys first when I was a kid. And this thing right here, if I'm a kid, I'm like, dude, this is my favorite team right here. They have every year they have to do something like this because this is beautiful. I mean, like I said, Casey Hall, for what it stood for, if you see, like, there's two other photos that explain the rest of it that I didn't want to, that I thought, people could look at themselves. But this right here is a web gem. I mean, can you imagine how it's going to look on the field? Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah, that's a great point that you bring up around the 3-week campaign that the NLL has announced every team is going to be participating in through January and February for the Every Child Matters initiative, as well as the First Nation celebration. So connecting the dots on a lot of things that are bigger than lacrosse around access, around opportunity, inclusion, and just bringing awareness to these much needed conversations. And then it looks good to bat, which definitely helps for sure with the overall product to see that jersey flying around on the field. I agree. It's one I would love to have myself. So I also wonder how Vancouver, with these alternate jerseys, maybe has a little extra pep in their step. Sometimes, and I was just having a conversation about this with cleats for soccer, sometimes your gear makes you feel a little extra oomph of excitement, especially when you have that pride of being able to rock a specific jersey or cleat or whatever it may be, or shoe. So maybe the Vancouver Warriors have a little more up their sleeves, along with this beautiful jersey designed by Casey Hall that they'll be rocking Saturday. So we'll stay tuned on that. We've got more to get into here on Daily Dive. As I mentioned, we've got our special guest for the episode presented by Fanatics, Steve Bermel, Buffalo Bandits analyst, joining us in just a moment. We also have to get into our power rankings going into this week and much more here. So stay tuned. More to come here on Daily Dive. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Daily Dive. We've had a chance to talk about some of the news around the NLL, the alternate jerseys released in Vancouver, as well as the trade that happened between the Bandits and the Wings. So what better person to bring on along with the trade to discuss that, but also coming off of an incredible game, tough loss for the Bandits to Rochester, than Buffalo Bandits analyst Steve Bermel. And Steve, welcome to the show. It's happy to have you here as our special guest presented by Fanatics.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited for another chance to talk about the Bandits, and a heck of a game last weekend and a big doubleheader coming up for them.
Always great to have you here. This segment brought to you, as mentioned, by Fanatics. You can check out that link in our social media bio to see the merchandise and the gear that is there. And let's start off with the trade, though. Before we jump into all the game action, we were talking about it here on the show a couple moments ago, so I want to get your thoughts. Trading 2 6th-round picks in the 2025 draft, along with Marcus Minichiello. What are your initial thoughts on this trade, and do you think it's part of a bigger move that's happening in Buffalo?
I'm not sure about a bigger move. It very well could be. They're certainly not going to be satisfied after losing to Rochester. But I think with Adam Bomberry coming in, Adam's 6'5" and like 210. And those kind of big defenders are the guys that Steve Dietrich looks for. And Marcus is not. He's kind of built a little bit smaller. He's quicker. Never really could crack the lineup with Buffalo. So I think this was an instance of making room for Adam and also kind of making sure that Marcus gets a chance somewhere else instead of just cutting him. He's been really good to the Bandits. My favorite story with Marcus is the Bandits had a practice. This was last season, and all their defenders were banged up. And early in practice, he took a slash on the wrist, and it got right between his glove and his lower. And he comes to the bench holding his wrist, and like he could have shut it down. He's like, no, I know we need bodies out there to practice. So I think he was really a heart and soul guy for the team, despite not really cracking the lineup. So I think they wanted to kind of do him a favor, find somewhere that he could go and have a chance. Philadelphia probably looking to shake things up a little bit. So for him, it's kind of helping him out. But also now with bringing in Adam Bomberry, all that does is push Marcus further down the depth chart. He's never going to see the field in Buffalo, most likely. So I think it was doing him a favor while also kind of making room on the roster for a 6'5", 210-pound big defenseman, which is the kind of guy that Steve Dietrich wants back there.
Yeah, when you break it down that way, it does make sense. And as we were talking about before, Marcus definitely seems like a locker room guy that's going to bring a little bit extra. And as you talk about the heart and soul that he brings of even that toughness, a team like the Wings could use that right now. And absolutely, as you look at the depth chart, there's no need having a young player that you know isn't going to be able to crack the lineup or really be able to contribute when you're bringing in a player like Adam Bomberry, who absolutely fits the mold of what the Bandits want defensively and need defensively as well. So definitely makes a lot of sense looking ahead to how that trade will play out. Well, we also have to look back. What a game between Rochester. It was a coin flip for me. I didn't even know who to pick. I just knew it was going to be a close game that would have a postseason feel to it. But in your opinion, what was the difference between Buffalo winning that game and dropping that loss to the Nighthawks, who remain undefeated?
All right, so I have the full analysis here, so buckle up. I was in the stands. I did go to the game. I wasn't in the press box. I was sitting in the stands. I was walking around. I got a view. Buffalo, if you're Buffalo, you can hang your hat on the fact that at halftime you had an 8-5 lead. You played well enough against a very good team. They were in control of the game. The first quarter, Matt Vinc was outstanding, killed 2 penalties for them. It kind of felt like at halftime, everything was going the Bandits' way. For the most part, they were kind of shutting down Connor Fields and Holden Cattoni on the left side there, and everything was kind of going right. And I noticed a couple times that as the defense was shading to that side to take away Fields and Cattoni, that Rochester was pushing the ball the other way and getting good opportunities. It was almost like they were cheating that way, and you have to. Connor Fields is unbelievable. He would be the goal-scoring leader if he didn't take a week off for his honeymoon. You have to shade that way and respect Fields and Cattoni. And then I feel like I noticed that in the third quarter, in the fourth quarter, they kind of stopped cheating over that way a couple times and were trying to slide late. And they were getting there too late. The ball finds Connor Fields from behind the net. And by the time a defender slides out and closes that gap, he's already got the shot away and it's in the back of the I thought that Rochester scored on something like 5 or 6 straight shot goal went in. A 5-1 run in the third quarter and a 5-0 run in the fourth quarter for Rochester. I mean, they were down 8-5, and then it felt like they were in such control. Even at the end of the third quarter, Buffalo had the lead 11-10, but it never felt like they were going to hang on with the way that the Nighthawks were coming. Full credit to the way that the Nighthawks turned that game around at halftime. Full credit to Dan Carey for putting together a roster that, after being an expansion team, Buffalo always struggled to go into Rochester and win games over the years. The first couple of years of their expansion, they would take care of business in Rochester. It felt, Renee, just like 5 years ago when Buffalo would go into Rochester and they just could not find a way to win in that barn. It felt that way again, and full credit to Dan Carey, full credit to the Nighthawks, because at the half, Buffalo was in control. It felt like they were in the driver's seat, and man, oh man, did that ever shift in a hurry. In the entire second half, I was sitting with Bandits fans, and they just felt like it was a dud, and that's full marks to the Nighthawks and the way that they played.
I felt like this game was a very convincing game for Rochester to make their stamp across the league, and a statement, I should say, that we are a top team here.
Yes.
Our record is not a fluke, and I agree with you. When you look at the way the momentum shifted, it's hard to regain that, and how defensively the Bandits were caught over overplaying one side, and Rochester very heads up, able to work around it. You mentioned Connor Fields with his tremendous start to the season that he's had of nearly eclipsing 20 goals and assists. He's right on the brink of that after this past weekend. And they have a team that they're winning by committee, though. Holden Tony's playing well. Connor Fields is playing well. Ryland's playing well. But there's a lot of guys that are stepping up right now. And, it's definitely tough when you have the focus on one player and lose that momentum. And now you're trying to figure out how to get that back. So that's interesting that even fans could feel that. Well, you also mentioned Matt Vinc, and he did become, in that game, the first player with 14,000 minutes, which is phenomenal. But you also look at championships within it. Like, there's more than just the minutes, the championships, the accolades, the goaltender of the year, the different types of accomplishments he had. Is he on a Mount Rushmore for the NLL, in your opinion? Being a GOAT, are we putting him in the GOAT conversation at this point?
So it's interesting, like, if you compare it to hockey, you have Patrick Waugh, Martin Brodeur, and Dominic Hasek, and you kind of go back and forth. Like, Hasek may have been the most talented. Maybe I'm biased as a Buffalo fan. Hasek may have been the most talented, but he didn't have the success that Waugh and Brodeur did. He did later in his career, but there's always that comparison. But when you mention Matt Vinc, not only is he the most talented, the in the best shape, holding all the records, he won 3 straight championships. Like, it's both and. It's not just him being the most athletic, talented, skilled goaltender to ever play the position. It's not just the guy that won all the championships. He has the pedigree of both. And it's going to be really, really difficult to look back, even with some of the best guys to ever do it, Dallas Eliuk and some of the guys that you can look back on. He is posting records in every stat category, but he also has a handful of rings to go with it. And obviously for Buffalo, they're hoping that he finds a way to get another one. 2 cracks at it. Since he's come to Buffalo, they've made the finals both times, and they haven't been able to get over that hump. But yes, I think Matt Vinc is maybe the best player to ever do it as far as the success with championships and the skill. Maybe John Tavares would have something to say about that, being a part of the 4 championship teams early on. But yes, absolutely, Matt Vinc has to be on the Mount Rushmore, because in both statistical categories and the rings, he's got both to show for it.
He does. And at 40 years old is defying age also with that. But, I had a chance, I remember years back, to do a feature story and talk with Matt Vinc. And he's also just has a great outlook and mindset. You see why he's so successful. And I know we had Nick Rose of the Toronto Rock on the show in our Wednesday episode yesterday. And we were talking as goalies, the stats are good and bad. You don't want to have to make saves. You don't want to have to see shots. Yeah. So when you add championships to that, it shows you're making the saves, you're getting the shutouts, you're keeping opponents to low goals, and you're helping your team win games and win titles. So when you put all that together, absolutely puts together a great case for why he's one of the best, if not the best, to ever do it, and definitely between the pipes for sure. You love to have these conversations. I do want to also get your thoughts looking ahead to the doubleheader. We've seen every team has had their doubleheader. They've had their home and away. They've had 2 back-to-back games, and now it's the Bandits' turn, facing the Wings, facing the Riptide. Not a far drive from Philly to New York at all, but it is a back-to-back game against 2 teams that are hungry, middle of the pack. Of course, the Riptide coming off of their first win of the season, so trying to move up into the middle of the pack. What are your thoughts on how the Bandits need to go into this win, take care of business, and what you're expecting from these 2 games?
You talk about the travel between the cities, between Philly and New York, and oftentimes if Buffalo had New England when the Black Wolves were at Mohegan Sun on the second leg of a back-to-back, they would actually take a sleeper bus, because by the time they got to the airport, flew into Boston, got on a bus, drove the hours from Boston to Uncasville, Connecticut, it was faster and less taxing to just get on a bus out of Buffalo and take a sleeper bus 6 hours, 7 hours directly. So this is probably easier than that, because it's about an hour or so from Philly to New York. But yeah, it's interesting because the Bandits have to try to keep pace with Rochester. They want to win the division. They're tied with Toronto in the standings. Halifax is nipping at their heels. This feels like an opportunity where they because Erie, you look on paper, they should be better than Philadelphia and New York, although New York did come into Buffalo last year and run them out of the building. They had an outstanding game, the Riptide did against Buffalo last year. So they can't take these teams lightly, but just for the sake of the standings, they've got to make some hay here. You're playing two teams that are in the bottom of your division. You're trying to keep pace with Rochester, who just beat you. It could get to a point quickly where Rochester's no longer going to be reachable. I mean, you're 6 games into the season, and they've got a 2-game lead on you, plus the tiebreaker having beat you. It's going to get harder and harder to play catch up. So they have to win both. There's no settling for a split when it comes to accomplishing goals. And goal number 1 will be to win the division. And last weekend certainly hurt that. So against two teams who are struggling to find their way a little bit still, Buffalo will settle for nothing less than 2 wins in 2 days.
Oh, that's such a great point. And these are 2 games that are dangerous for that sense. It's a back-to-back, which also makes it dangerous. It's tough. As an athlete, your routine is more around 1 game per weekend, and then having to play back-to-back within 24 hours against 2 teams that have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
We all know in sports how dangerous that is. These are 2 teams that on paper are expected to get to lose, possibly even get blown out, and they're just coming into it trying to pull upset, trying to knock off one of the top teams in the league. So as you look at the bigger picture, especially postseason contention, playoff standings, winning the conference, it's vital that the Bandits take care of business in these types of games. We'd love to see how the drama unfolds and how the race for the title continues. So, Steve, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show again. I love the insight you bring. I love that you were able to give us a behind-the-scenes look, especially right now. The Bandits are a team we're all keeping an eye on, close to or trying to catch Rochester. Absolutely a top team in the NLL, and a lot of excitement going on in Buffalo with the production on the field, the accomplishments, and even the trade. So thank you, Steve, for jumping on the show to weigh in on all things Bandits.
Thanks for having me. Always great to talk to you guys. Appreciate your time, and thanks for the opportunity to talk about NLL lacrosse. It's the best.
It is. Thank you so much, Steve. Always a pleasure having you on. Can't wait to have you on again. With that, we do have to take a quick break, though, before we get into our power rankings to wrap up today's episode. So don't go anywhere, because we've been carving up what's going on around the Bandits and the NLL. We've got to share our top 5 as of today. So stay tuned, guys. Welcome back to Daily Dive. I'm your host, Renee Washington. We're talking all things NLL in today's episode. We had a chance to talk about the Buffalo Bandits with analyst Steve Bermel. We had a chance to talk about the trade that broke out of Buffalo with the Wings. And we also talked about the Vancouver Warriors' new alternate jerseys that they will be rocking in the First Nations celebration game this Saturday. Well, looking ahead to our weekend. Got to get into some power rankings presented by B-Res Coffee Company. Be sure to check out B-Res Coffee. The link is in our social media bios for all of you coffee lovers that need at least one a day or a week or a month. Check out B-Res to see what they've got in terms of some delicious flavors and different types of coffee that you can be brewing this week.
Including new flavors.
New flavors to brew. It's a brewing. So we have our Daily Dive game of the week. San Diego Seals at the Colorado Mammoth, Saturday, 9 p.m. Eastern time. That game will also be the Grateful Dead night that the Mammoth will be hosting, which is going to be interesting and spooky, but also going to be a showdown, especially between 2 teams that are absolutely in both of our power rankings top 5 as of today. So that being said, Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you, producer Mike, to share your top 5 teams as of today based on what we know, standings, what we've seen, and our thoughts.
I say spoiler alert, they're both in it. Uh-oh. Here we go. I gotta get the big screen for this one. Okay, here we go. Oh, number 5 for me, a team. Right, I love it. The drum roll. Hanging by a thread, and I mean the sewing machine is like almost there. But we're gonna go with the Saskatchewan Rush. I think the Rush have a big game this weekend. They have to play the Desert Dogs. They got to clamp down defensively because Las Vegas is finding their stride offensively. So it could be a big win. It could be a big loss. We're going to have to see. But Rush, to be proud, please. Number 4, the San Diego Clapping Seals, baby. Okay, so. Oh, no. Right. But I love this team at times, and the other time I'm like, really? This is the favorites? Like, and Renee, you called it out the first, and you were right. They are very up and downy. Number 3, the defending champions, the Colorado Mammoth. You can't deny it. This team's defense is incredible, as mentioned by Seals play-by-play guy and Lax Metrics owner Cooper Perkins. Broke it down for us pretty good in that article. And, yeah, Mammoth were pretty good. And Reese Dutch, good signing. Number 2, the Buffalo Bandits. I thought they were going to win that game. They did not. So number 1 is the Rochester Nighthawks. It is still wild to me the Bandits are the most active at this trade, like doing trades so far. But I think Rochester's earned it. I was trying to be hesitant too. But Rylan Hartley, when he's on, it might be the best goalie in the NLL. Oh boy, did I make anybody mad? I'm just saying he's really, really good. Incredible stuff there for Rylan Hartley.
Wow. Producer Mike coming with the hot takes on your top 5 and also best of the league right now. And Rylan Hartley, well, I'm going to start off at the number 5 spot. And I hate to say that I was influenced by our interview yesterday, but I was. It helped make the difference for me in talking with Nick Rose, Toronto Rock goaltender, about just what's going on in Toronto, a team that I don't feel like enough people are talking about. He actually disagreed a bit with me. He felt like they were not a sleeper. I feel like they are. I feel like everybody's focusing so much on the Nighthawks, the Bandits, the Mammoth, the Seals, the Rush. They're not really talking about the Rock. We're talking about the struggling teams, but we're not talking about the Rock. I'm putting them at number 5, though. Looking at their results, looking at the way they are playing, not only they are a top team in the standings, but they also have a lot of talent. And Tom Schreiber, one of the top goal scorers right now, Nick Rose, they've got the pieces. And I think we're going to see a lot more from them as the season progresses. And I think this weekend's game versus Calgary is going to be the first start for that. Number 3B. 3B, the San Diego Seals. They've got the showdown with 3A, the Colorado Mammoth. I cannot put a team above the other right now. I think offensively, I want to have the Seals higher, but I know defensively, especially between the pipes, the Seals right now aren't cutting it for me. They haven't had the consistency. They've been struggling to start strong and finish strong and close out games. They've also been struggling with dropping a deficit that's hard to come back from, which we saw in their loss to Calgary. And I think Colorado is going to exploit that, which is why I put them at 3A. I think they're going to exploit that this weekend, not to get into my picks, but I think they're the better team right now. We'll see for sure in that Grateful Dead night matchup on Saturday between the Mammoth and the Seals, which is absolutely our game of the week by no surprise. So 3A Colorado winning by committee. Reese Dutch, a huge addition. And just the way they're playing, absolutely a top team right now. And then I do have the Bandits at number 2 and the Nighthawks at number 1. The Bandits just lost to the Nighthawks. This is a no-brainer. They're not the number 1 team. They have 2 losses now on the season, including their season opener. And the Nighthawks are undefeated. And like I've said before, and I will say again, until somebody beats Rochester, they are holding that number 1 spot. And they are doing it convincingly. To be undefeated in any league at this stage of this season, 6 games in, that is it. Period. Mic drop. That's all I need to see. So right now, the Nighthawks are number 1. And like Steve Bermel was saying, the Bandits are trying to close the gap at number 2, but they're number 2 for a reason. All right, so those are our power rankings presented by B-Res Coffee. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know who your top 5 teams are. I've got the Rush out of mine. In the Rock are number 5. You've got the Rush at number 5 in yours, Mike, and the Rock are not in your top 5. So we will see as this week progresses. A lot of games this weekend. So a lot that we will get to watch play out on the field between the lines of who is a top team across the NLL and who is not. So for those of you that are tuning in, thanks for joining us for another edition of Daily Dive here, live each and every day, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Hope you have a great rest of your Thursday. Tomorrow we've got picks, predictions, all the excitement leading into this weekend's game, so be sure to tune in. Have a great rest of your day, guys. We'll see you tomorrow for our final edition of the week and more here on Daily Dive. So long.